you're saying one thing loud and clear. You are not a member of the family. And I don't know if that's really where you want to start. Another interesting reason, by the way, to include spouses in these conversations, the children's spouses in these conversations, is I don't have the time to show you the example, but I will tell you that in 96.4% of the cases, 96.4% of the cases, the children of entrepreneurs do not marry the children of entrepreneurs. Think about that for a moment. So, married, divorced, and married. At least two, if not all three of these kids are not going to marry the child of an entrepreneur. They're going to marry someone who is the child of a teacher, of an executive in a non-family business, of a professor, of a dentist, of a cop, but not the child of an entrepreneur. And that's when the fun begins, because they come into the system and no one has educated them about this thing, about what it means, about who can have a job here, about about who can own stock here. And it's not their fault when they ask questions like, can I ever have a job here? And typically they'll ask that question at the most inopportune time, right? Usually at Thanksgiving, and nobody's prepared them for this, right? And then once they ask the question, then all of a sudden it is, they're after the money. Shh, don't say anything. Secrecy is not a good idea either. So we need to keep this stuff transparent. We need to be forthright about it. But some of the reasons that I hear that families choose to keep an enterprise and choose as siblings or cousins to be in business together, because it's not that easy. There are easier things in life than doing that. But they choose to do so because they think that owning a business is a great opportunity to learn about the responsibilities of ownership, about the role of corporate governance. It's a great way to learn leadership skills that, these, in the case I showed here, that if we have 300 employees, let's say, in our business, that the likelihood that either of these two daughters here would ascend to a CEO or have the opportunity to ascend to a CEO or a chairman role in a non-family enterprise is not nearly as likely as if they were to keep the company. Right? So it's they have a higher likelihood of gaining a very top slot in the company if in fact the family owns the company. It's an opportunity to experience the pride of ownership. If they sell the company, we used to have all these family meetings. Once a year, twice a year, the whole family got together and we would have these substantive conversations about the purpose of our wealth and what we want to do with it. And once the company is sold, those meetings go away. Sometimes owning a business provides an opportunity for philanthropy, which can be very meaningful. Okay. On the other hand, if we think about selling the business, I think it's real important to consider what is the long-term financial outlook for this company. Do we have to be a seller? What if we're in a sector that's going through a lot of consolidation? Why must we be a seller? Maybe we could be one of the buyers. Right? And maybe we need to find the right partner in order to do that. Maybe we need to ramp up our governance structure in order to be a player and a buyer. But I think it's very important that if you're thinking of selling your business as that's your exit plan, again, that you think long and hard and you speak with your advisors, what are you going to do with the money? Okay. Full in their money or quickly separated. If you keep it in a business, you probably know how to manage that. I'd be willing to bet that in most cases, if we went back over the last, say 5 years, that in fact the ROI of a privately held family enterprise was probably better and performed better than the S&P over the long term. We also need to think about, can we provide liquidity to some shareholders? Maybe not everyone wants to stay involved. Well, that's another planning process as we think about how do we set aside sufficient cash to buy those shareholders out. At the point of sale, going back to a sale idea, what do we do with the money as it relates to management and the people who helped us build this enterprise? What percentage do we give back to our community, to our churches? And what's the tax situation going to look like? You may in fact find that it's far better to hold on to the enterprise and put really strong management in place and to think about a long-term vision than to exit. What are we going to do with the family members who had jobs here, who are only in their 40s? Right? The elders are in their upper 60s, early 70s, and they elect to sell. So their children now are in their 40s, probably, maybe even up to their early 50s. And maybe they were working in the business, and what are they going to do? And has anybody taken the time to tell them that that offer made, that employment contract that was offered as part of the deal to keep you employed in the business, trust me, within a year after that deal is inked, they're not going to want you hanging around there. Right? They're going to want to sweep you out of the room. You're going to become persona non grata. I think it was Solo Cup. Remember them? Mm-hmm. Who did they sell to? Amen. Yeah. Go, next time you have the chance, talk to some of the Holzman family, right, who are the next generation, who were part of that deal, and ask them, how did they experience working for Dixie? It wasn't fun, you know? It wasn't like the good old days when the Holzman owned the keys to the shop. Okay? We really need to think about the implications of keeping and selling, I think. And I think that if we're going to keep it, I can make a compelling reason for doing so. Family businesses, the data shows that family enterprises outperform and outlast non-family businesses. All of you have heard the statistic that, only 30% of family businesses survive to the second generation. Anybody hear that? Right? And then they say, and only a third of that make it to G3. Okay. 2 points before I take my seat or answer questions. Number one, that's our research. Okay, that research was initially done at Loyola University of Chicago back in 1983 when one of my business partners and colleagues, good looking John Ward, took the Illinois Manufacturers Directory and noodled that out. All of a sudden, it's like this fear factor. Guess what? If we took the S&P 100 and we went back 100 years, how many companies do you think would still be on that list after 3 generations? 1. That's it. Sorry?
It's actually 7, but the one that you're talking about is GE.
That's right. There'd be at least 4 family businesses left in the room. You outperformed them by 300%. Right? Their ROI is higher, consistently. Family businesses outperform non-family firms over the long haul because, we believe, they take a very long-term view on how they deploy their capital. But it does require planning, it requires transparency, it requires vision, it requires strategy, and one of the things that a lot of founders and business owners don't like to do, you got to talk. It requires a lot of communication with stakeholders. You want me to close for questions or do that during the panel?
Probably during the panel.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You'll be on the panel.
I will be on the panel. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Who's running the panel? You're running the panel. Okay.
The guy already failed you,
We've
Drew.
got questions. I think Gene is supposed to come up now, right?
I'd like to introduce our panel moderator.
His name is Chuck Jenrich, and I just don't know what to say about Chuck. He is a graduate of Thornton Community College, which is now South Suburban College. He went on to become a dean at Prairie State College, and now he has his own consulting business and travels all over the country working with different companies. So, Chuck?
Thanks, Becky. All right, for our other panel members want to join us up front here, glad to have them join us. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, and welcome to the sixth, I'm sorry, I lied. The 6th annual conference that we have here. There was a bonus on the 5th year I missed. Good. Well, thank you all for being here this morning. Drew, thank you for a great lecture. I'm sorry I failed you on the thing, but it's always good to be fired by somebody first thing in the morning. I mean, it's a way to start your day as you go through this. So as we begin this morning, Drew has already given us a quick introduction of who he is and what he does. Is there anything you'd like to add to that now, Drew, that we know you and we know how well you speak and go through this? Anything to add to your experience? Then I'm going to go to the very nice lady on his left who I know and have worked with before, Gina Rico. And Gina, just give us a few minutes about your background and your history and some nice things about you. Gina's a wonderful person, by the way.
Thank you. Well, thank you for South Suburban for having me here today. My background is I've worked with small business now for about 25 years, and what I like to do is go in and normally I have a position in the company, and I go in and I help them align their goals with the end result. And I always say keep the end in mind, and what do you want to do with what with the company. And over the years I've helped a few companies and actually sell off, go ahead and sell and move on to other things. And I just recently went through a project that was a case study of what you talked about today, so it was quite interesting to hear. It does work out exactly how Mr. Mendoza spoke today, step by step. If you don't follow with the end in mind, you end up with many other obstacles in place. And so that's pretty much what my experience with
Thanks, Gina.
companies like that.
Thank you. And then our panelist on the very far left of me is Patrick DeFrabois, and I did that right the first time. That's what he said. Now I probably screwed it up the second time. Patrick, please give us a little bit of background and your experience with succession.
Thank you. Again, my name is Pat DeFrabois. I currently run a manufacturing company down in Harvey, Illinois. We're one of the world's largest manufacturers of pipe and tube, privately owned. We deal with succession planning all the time. We usually run a $2 billion organization all the way from supervisor all the way to CEO. But I've also ran several companies for families, privately held small companies, both good and bad managed, and I've gone through both. One of them is actually closing down right now. The founder died 2 years ago. The 5 family members are slowly winding down the business, not intentionally. They had 35 employees when he died. They are down to 5 manufacturing employees, so it is not being managed well. So I've experienced both good and bad.
So let me just begin, and as we looked over some of the questions that we're going to present to the panel today, they've all had a chance to look at them ahead of time, so I know that all were prepared. But as I looked over them, I thought, I have some issues here too.